had a prepared intro that I was going to do, but I want to pick up on something that Orel mentioned when he was talking about Wales and New England. One of the projects I've been working on recently is spending a lot of time up in Portsmouth in New Hampshire, and one of the beers that I like drinking there is an IPA called Maine Lunch. When he actually went and named the beer, swimming down the Piscataqua River in New Hampshire was a big killer whale with or a big orca, and it had a big chump out of its fin. And one of the guys who was standing next to you said, "Oh, it looks like someone's had their lunch," and that's how they named the beer. So if you're ever up in New Hampshire, make sure you have a Maine Lunch. They also have a breakfast and a dinner. So, I mean, always good to start on that. So, as mentioned, my name's Fabian Smith. I head up enterprise architecture globally for Capgemini and our insurance practice. We work with probably a lot of you guys already, I'm sure. We have around 26,000 insurance practitioners globally. We're a company of around 350,000. We've had a long-standing partnership with Ernix. We also work with many of the major players that was shown on the screen earlier on the ground floor of the presentation, which Orel was showing. So, you know, with the likes of Guidewire, with Duck Creek, with Majesco, with Insurity, and so we have a lot of large-scale transformation experience in this area, and it's really gives us a really good insight across industry, across personal lines, commercial lines, specialty, life insurance, and really from West Coast America all the way to Australia and Asia Pacific. So hopefully today I can share with you some of the insights that we see that we're seeing in the market, and yeah, hope it goes well. So where should we start? I think most carriers already have capable rating engines, I think, or a lot of specialty carriers may not even have capable rating engines. They may be doing a lot of their rating in Excel-based workbooks and things like that, which are very, very difficult to maintain, very, very difficult to manage, very, very difficult to govern and really understand. And it goes back to some of the things that Robin and Orel have already spoken about in terms of it's very difficult to get a competitive advantage when we're slow to implement or slow to innovate. And that's really where we're seeing the biggest improvement in terms of capability and sophistication in the market, is when we're able to essentially decommoditize what the pricing offering is. Now, what do I mean by commoditization? Essentially, when everyone's using essentially the same data, when everyone's using the same third-party integrations, when everyone's using the same third-party insurtechs or whatever it is they're using, you essentially just bring it down to a competitiveness on price. And competitiveness on price is not a differentiator, right? Because then all you're doing, and you just get manipulations in the market where people are artificially adjusting prices based off of what they want to do and how they want to grow their business. So really what we want to do is move ourselves to a place where we're not just differentiating on price, we're differentiating on a number of factors. And this, the simplest examples are looking at when you look at personal auto, but this goes across the whole business range, the whole range of insurance, whether we're talking ocean marine, whether we're talking aviation, whether we're talking energy or E&S casualty. There are differentiators that we can put into play there, which is what pricing sophistication can really help with. Equally also, that's already been mentioned, it takes a long time to implement rate changes at the moment. Often 3 to 6 months can be a sort of an average change. So we want to get to a place, and we've had success in getting to places, bringing that down to certainly under a month, sometimes in a week. So there's a lot of capability that we can bring there. So, building on what I've already said, why core functionality isn't enough. Yeah, I've already spoken about commoditization of base rates, limited segmentation capability. When we talk about the core systems, they struggle to support multiple models across micro-segments. So when we're looking at all of the different, you might break D&O down into multiple different business lines. Cyber, you would have at least 4 different business lines that you would be looking at. The core systems struggle to actually deliver on those micro-segments and really get into the nitty-gritty detail of what you want to capture. Because rating, pricing, and decisioning is only really as good as the data that it's built on. Talked already about slower change cycles, quarterly updates, often missing critical moments in the market, or the competitive opportunities that you have. So we really want to get to a place where we can adapt swiftly to those changes in the market or to the variables that we have no control over. And also we want to get to a place where we can differentiate at quote and bind. We want to be able to provide different offers, good, better, best, or different capabilities in that, or really surface up to the customer or the broker or the other insurer that you're working with that, hey, this offering has something extra than what you want, what you're offering at the moment, and really bring that to light. So we talk about platform extensions being the multiplier, and I think it goes back to sort of a lot of what's already been said as well. Really, your pricing, rating, and decisions are only as good as the data foundation that they're built on. The richer our data sets and the richer the information that we have to actually be able to bring into your system is really going to help. But it's not external data that we're necessarily talking about. It's your own insurance carrier data that you already have, and it's leveraging that data. We know from many of the implementations we've done, alongside a lot of the core transformations that we're doing, we're building out data platform capabilities to actually be able to surface all of that good data that people have got. Lots of challenges come that we're doing with mainframe transformation, getting data out of legacy mainframes and things like that. But that shouldn't be a blocker to enabling. There are ways and means of doing that. When we can get that data out and we can use a system like Ernix, and we can get that data and serve that data into the pricing and rating engine, then we can really kind of supercharge our capabilities there. Now, as well as building that sophistication into the pricing, we also want to be able to allow actuaries the ability to experiment. And that's super important, is bringing that element to be able to test things out, whether it's A/B testing, canary testing, champion, challenger models, all of these types of things, so they can get real time and real insights into what they've actually developed. And we've typically seen that's been very, very challenging with legacy technology because, well, we've already spoken about the time it takes to implement. But equally, the tools are not there to be able to do these regular deployments or to be able to serve these up in those types of ways that I've talked about. And we've already touched a little bit on AI. I think the last point I'll make on here is that governance, audits, and traceability and explainability are really, really key going forwards as we bring more and more AI-based technologies in, whether it's agentic, whether it's generalized linear models, whether it's large language models, or whether it's true AGI that we eventually will get to. Regulators will expect, and also customers will expect, to be able to truly understand how it came to that, how you came to making that pricing decision. Am I being unfairly treated because I'm a certain ethnicity or living in a certain demographic? These are real-world problems that we've seen pop up already in industry. So it's only going to be more and more important as we can see bias being introduced in AIs. It's exactly the same way that we see bias introduced in humans, whether it's conscious or unconscious. So we need to really spend a significant amount of time making that we have clear audit and traceability in our systems, and Ernix does a really good job of helping us with that. So, talk about actually getting there, or getting to the points that I'm talking about. We're essentially, most people are on the bottom rung there, so in terms of rule-based rating. Standard actuarial factors, rating tables that don't change particularly often, general relativities that we have. That's normally historically been because of the limitation of the technology that they have available, or also potentially a lack of investment in terms of getting the right staff, or freeing up the actuarial talent that you have to actually be doing the actuarial work rather than actually doing a lot of the rekeying between systems and things like that. If we move on to the second rung, talking about statistical segmentation. So things like generalized linear models, territory refinements, being able to get a lot more granular in terms of how you're segregating between the different products that you're doing, or the different types of coverages that you've got, and being able to analyze those things a lot clearer. I think that's a really kind of easy next step to get to start leveraging some of this technology, and tools like Ernix can really help get you there quickly on that journey. Next one we move up to pricing elasticity. It goes back to some of the things I've already been talking about in terms of we want to bring that flexibility, we want to bring that ability to release changes quickly, we want to be able to adjust to global and local events that are occurring. We need to react to things like, the container ship that crashes in the Suez Canal. We know that's going to cause a huge impact into supply chain globally. We do need to factor those things in as part of when we're making our pricing decisions, because a few months down the line, that's going to have a huge impact in terms of the overall cost. And, we saw that over the last few years in terms of the increase in premiums, all interconnected. Then we want to get into really real-time and contextual pricing offerings. I'm sure many of you who work with personal auto or commercial auto have already started doing things around usage-based insurance and telematics and behavioral pricing. This isn't just relevant for personal lines, and isn't just relevant for personal auto. We see increasing capabilities across, whether it's container ships where we're monitoring and censoring the containers that are on the ship, or from aviation, taking into account the safety record of the airlines, the amount of flights that are being delayed, the number of staff turnover, the churn, the different types of pilots that they're getting in. Really getting down to that really nitty-gritty of understanding the complexity behind what actually creates the risk. Then we also move on to kind of portfolio optimization. So really being aware of your internal capacity to manage risk, understanding the different levers that you can pull in order to kind of manipulate your own internal operations or target for specific markets. Now, this isn't really necessarily a direct kind of pricing and rating consideration, but the data and the decisions which will come from the platform will help really inform those and help inform your business leaders into making the right decisions of where they're going to get to. So, we've often talked about legacy rating engines, a very small number of models for even just a single line of business. We're talking about moving to a whole portfolio of models. And when I looked at when we went on the previous slide, when I was talking about the different steps up to getting to more and more sophistication, it's not about replacing the previous four with the top 5 one. It's about having models at each stage of that to give you all of that insight and flexibility. So, with a portfolio of models, and we built these. We went from just someone who had like a couple of models into having 40 in-memory models and then another 200 models on the back end, and that was just for personalized auto, and that was nearly 5 years ago. So, the capability is there to do these things, but when you're doing that, obviously has a really big impact on how you actually manage that change. So, we kind of want to start treating models as code, run the same types of unit integration and end-to-end system testing with the same type of versioning strategy that we have when we're managing code. That will really enable us to track the ownership, to understand what model was used in order to make what calculation, really sort of give us that end-to-end traceability. Another key point is the ability to retire models. We don't want accidentally people using an outdated model. So some of these things are stuff that is often forgotten about when doing the implementations, and you really got to focus on getting these things right. If you can get these things right, then you'll have a very successful implementation and no surprises down the line. And then the last one I'll talk about really is actually tracking tracking and understanding and reporting out this information. You have key business objectives and key performance indicators that have been given to you by your leaders in business. You want to be able to, measure those, and you want to be able to report back on those to actually show. So when we're doing the type of challenger models that we've talked about, that's it's a really important thing to surface up. So, cut cycle time without cutting corners. I've talked about rating as code, version control, peer review, transparent. Really, really important. Use CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration and continuous delivery pipelines. Your models should not be operating in any different way to if you were deploying a website or deploying an integration. Your model is part of the system and should be treated as such. Similarly, when we're moving on to different types of AI agents that exist in agentic AI, they have to be treated in the same way and they have to go through the same level of rigor. If they don't, then we'll end up with the same types of problems that we historically had with low levels of testing and low levels of automation. Another thing which we found very successful, feature flags. We've done in many places. When we talk about the champion challenger models, that can operate off a feature flag, but also often we do dark launches, particularly in kind of personal lines or in commercial lines, where we do dark launches with a select set of underwriters or a select set of brokers, and gives us that ability to understand how those things are performing. And then automation end to end. I mean, that's really the key. There should be no excuse in this day and age for not having automated regression. And really, there's no excuse in this day and age to have non-automated pipelines end to end. So, talked about making compliance built in. We should be able to automate the majority of these things, whether it's filing packs or different types of artifacts, different charts and visualizations. It's very, very important to clearly be able to articulate what decisions we've actually made there. So, transparent explanations should be very easy for people to understand what's occurred. We can use AI to assist with this, be able to explain what types of decisions that have been made, explain the different factors that have gone in. It's much easier these days using AI to be able to do that. We want intelligent guardrails. We need to be able to have fallback paths. We need to have different optionality around parameters when, say, a third-party integration isn't working or a data point is missing because the policy is 10 years old. It's been on a 10-year renewal cycle, and we don't have those data points. Clearly mapping all of that out, those scenarios, line of business by line of business, model by model, and understand that. And then, consistency in performance. I mean, this is something that can really turn the dial in terms of your, in terms of the cost of implementation. We have to be very, very, very understanding of what the SLAs are. Personal lines, we're talking sub-seconds. We're talking, 300 to 400 milliseconds maximum execution model time. Commercial insurance, not such big a concern, but if you're rating 1,000 assets across a number of different, 1,000 of assets across a whole portfolio, and you're not doing a single bulk rate, then the performance of actually calculating each of those individual assets again becomes super important. So it's really understanding up front what those impacts are, what those SLAs are against all of the different channels that you're serving, and make sure you design with that in mind. So some of the different metrics which demonstrate value, we have speed, coverage, performance, and profit. Speed, how long it takes us to deploy a new model, detect the rate of failure, how easy it is for us to roll those back or to switch to another model. How much of the coverage are we actually understanding as part of the premium of the advanced models, the number of different active models that we have available. I've talked a lot about the performance already, but having sophisticated models allows us to understand our profit, our loss ratio, our combined ratio impacts, our different margins by segments, and what's the different segments that are really giving us value for money, where we should invest more, where should we invest less. So, an example trajectory, what we're talking about, our baseline situation, limited to quarterly rate changes. I know Robin put up kind of 6 months. And, an 8-week end-to-end implementation life cycle is far too long. Limited segmentation capabilities, and manual filing preparation processes. Where we want to get to, and this is achievable in a 6 to 12-month timeline. Intraday dynamic pricing updates. A monthly cadence of release for selective canary releases. Reducing our cycle time down. We should not be spending, or certainly actuaries should not be spending, weeks or months going through and having to completely reevaluate every time they do a change. We need to get down to a much smaller time window. I mean, in previous examples that we've built and deployed we've been doing intraday pricing updates, up to 4 times a day. So we can get there. And then I just had a last slide on AI. I didn't really want to talk too much about AI, and I've smattered it into the presentation a little bit. I know a lot of the sessions that we have today, and the previous guys have already mentioned some of it, but I would get shocked by my leaders if I didn't at least mention something to do with AI. So, dynamic responsiveness, unlocking insights, accelerated execution, improved portfolio and profitability understanding, responding to competitors much quickly. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. We have a QR code on there if you want to contact us. But thank you very much.